This is Bruce Friedman of Adult Site Broker, and welcome to Adult Site Broker Talk, where every week we interview one of the movers and shakers of the adult industry, and we discuss what's going on in our business. Plus, we give you a tip on buying and selling websites. This week, we'll be talking to Justin Cooke of Empire Flippers. Adult Site Broker is proud to announce Adult Site Broker Cash, the first affiliate program for an adult website brokerage. With Adult Site Broker Cash, you'll have the chance to earn as much as 20% of our broker commission, referring sellers and buyers to us at Adult Site Broker. Check our website at adultsitebroker.com for more details. First of all, today, let's cover some of the news going on in our industry. In a case which may have consequences for cam models and sex workers who rely on a single platform for a majority of their income, a judge has ordered ride-hailing companies Uber and Lyft to reclassify their California drivers from independent contractors to employees. The ruling would make Uber and Lyft provide the newly classified employees with benefits in accordance with the AB5 legislation that came into effect on January 1st. San Francisco Superior Court Judge Ethan Schulman, who issued the injunction, also paused it for 10 days to allow for an appeal. The ride-hailing companies are expected to appeal the judge's preliminary injunction in favor of the state of California. If upheld, the ruling could, according to Bloomberg, make them halt their services as they figure out how to adjust their business model to comply with it. Judge Schulman agreed with California Attorney General Xavier Becerra that Uber and Lyft are violating AB5. The legislation is currently undergoing a revision process in Sacramento via a follow-up cleanup bill outlining exceptions and states that workers can generally only be considered contractors if they perform duties outside the usual course of one company's business. The ruling may have an impact on California cam models and other sex workers if the state or the workers themselves decide to argue that their performances constitute duties that are essential to the usual work of a camming platform, cam studio, or premium platforms business. AW Media, the parent company of AW Summit, has spun off the show into its own entity with Roxana Chirilla named as CEO and co-owner. Earlier this summer, organizers postponed its annual event series in Romania to 2021 due to ongoing concerns related to the pandemic. Roxana has been in charge of the company's recent shows, and she also came up with the recent AW meetup. Chirilla expressed excitement about her new role. She said, "I'm looking forward to take full responsibility of the AW Summit show that has been so important for our industry for over 7 years, and I'm looking forward to leading our show in Mamaia and to start the progress in moving AW Summit to Bucharest for 2022. The Los Angeles Times has published several more accounts of alleged sexual assaults by Ron Jeremy. None of the new accounts appear to have resulted in more charges by the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, which in June charged Jeremy with 8 counts of sexual assault. Jeremy was arrested on June 23rd and remains in jail awaiting trial. During his bail hearing on June 26th, the prosecutor, Deputy District Attorney Paul Thompson of the Sex Crimes Division, justified the unusually high $6.6 million bail his office requested by referring to the sheer number of allegations of what he termed sexual violence that have been named about Jeremy, some of them going back 30 years. Although the DA's office only found enough evidence to warrant charges over 4 incidents over a period of 5 years during Jeremy's arraignment, Thompson cited 38 allegations to justify his claim that Jeremy's freedom represents a risk and a danger to society. According to the Times article, prosecutors said they had been contacted by 25 women across the country who made allegations ranging from misdemeanor sexual battery to rape against the man who for decades was one of the porn industry's most visible celebrities. Now let's feature our property of the week that's for sale at Adult Site Broker. We're proud to offer for sale porn.co, an amazing adult domain name. This domain can be used for just about any purpose, including a pay site or a tube site. Porn.com sold for $9.5 million, and the .co extension is rapidly gaining in value. So besides being able to make money on this domain now, you can also count on it appreciating in value. This amazing domain has been reduced in price to only $199,000. Now time for this week's interview. My guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk is Justin Cooke, the owner of Empire Flippers, one of the top mainstream website brokerage companies in the world. Justin, thanks for being with us today on Adult Site Broker Talk.
Thanks for having me on, Bruce. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Empire Flippers provides a marketplace that allows people and companies to buy, sell, and invest in websites and online businesses. They offer an end-to-end concierge brokerage service for their customers and have done more than $138 million in total sales to date, which is really impressive. Let me also say that Justin has an amazing podcast, the Empire Flippers podcast, that was a good part of my inspiration to do this one. In fact, Justin was nice enough to have me as a guest a few years ago, so I decided to return the favor. Justin, how did you get started brokering websites?
Yeah, man. So my business partner and I, we'd been friends a very long time, back from like late 90s. We were friends in Southern California. And we were working for a company in the SEO space in California, and we were hiring people right and left. And so, we had, for a previous company we'd owned, we'd actually done some hiring in the Philippines. And so we told our bosses, the CEO and CFO, we said, look, we have this connection in the Philippines where we think we can hire some people to do some of this kind of back office work that you need done. So, they said, yeah, let's roll with it. So we hired a couple of people and we started scaling that up, scaling up a team in the Philippines. And eventually we went to them and said, hey, look, we've got this, it's now like 8 or 9 people. Why don't we run the business over there? We'll leave our jobs here to go run the business and work as, a company, a B2B company for you running this from the Philippines. And they went for it. So, my business partner and I moved to the Philippines to start an outsourcing company working for our previous employer. And, we were really excited about this. We'd, traveled quite a bit before, and we'd actually met in not the Philippines, but Thailand before, and had a really good time. And we always thought, what if we could, make dollars and spend pesos? And so we got the opportunity to do that. And we went over there. And then within a year, our previous employer had come up on hard times and started to cut back. And so, what we thought was a growing, stable opportunity turned into be, something other. And we were looking to replace them and looking for new clients, and we were testing out different things. And what we ended up stumbling on was the creation of profitable website assets. And so what you do is you put up a website, buy a domain, put up a website, put up some content around a very specific niche. And then over time, it starts to get ranked and starts to get search engine traffic. And you can monetize that. You can make money with it by putting ads on those sites. And so we started putting ads on them. We realized we can make money building these small sites. So, as our employer started to scale back, we started turning those people to building these sites for us. So we started building our own sites to start. And then we realized there are people that are willing to buy these sites that are making money. So the site would make, let's say, $100 a month. People will want to buy those sites from us for $2,000, $2,500 each.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it basically started from us kind of creating, finding that, our new outsourcing company, our previous employer was cutting us off. Looking for another opportunity to keep our business afloat, and then being able to create these like little niche websites that made money, and finding out people wanted to buy them from us.
Jeez, you certainly did the ultimate turning lemons into lemonades there, didn't you?
Well, we were forced to, right? Because these guys were like, okay, well, we're going to pay you half of what we were paying you last month. And we're like, oh God. And so we did have to lay off some staff in the Philippines, but it's with layoffs, like, the first round's kind of the easiest. You're like, okay, well, there's always 10, 15%, 20% of people that, maybe are on the fringes, maybe kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But then you start to cut deeper, and you're cutting people that really want to be there, that are doing a good job. And we realized that, and we said, look, these are smart, capable people that we want to keep. Like, we need to figure something for them to do. And we found something that worked, which is building these small, profitable sites. And that's kind of how we got started, was building sites for ourselves. Eventually that process failed too. So our, process for creating these sites wasn't working, wasn't nearly as profitable as it was in the beginning. In the beginning, we'd spend, somewhere between $50 to $100 and, make a site worth, $2,000. And, by the end,
Nice.
it was like $50 to $100 to make a site worth like $150, $200. And we're like, well, that's not really great. So, we had built this audience though of people that wanted to buy sites from us.
Sure.
These small earners. And now we didn't have supply. So we had demand. We had all these people wanting to buy sites, but no supply. And so we reached out to our audience that we'd built. We'd started a podcast and a blog talking about it. And we reached out to our audience and said, look, you guys are building sites too. Do you want to sell sites through us to our audience? Like we'll check them, we'll vet them, and then we'll list them up for sale. And we'll take a commission on the sites that you're listing with us for sale. And that's kind of how we moved from building our own sites for sale and selling them to like actually brokering other people's sites.
So how long ago did you start the podcast?
Yeah, so this was we started the brokering right around maybe 2011, 2012. And I think we started the podcast, we started the blog around 2010, 2011. And then maybe the podcast around 2012 as well.
Oh, you were an early adopter in this field.
Pretty early. I mean, we're not like Joe Rogan early, but the reason we did it, man, was it's funny. We have some friends. They have the Tropical MBA podcast, and they run a community called the Dynamite Circle. We went to meet them in the Philippines. We were lonely for other entrepreneurial kind of like connections. We were in the Philippines, and we were kind of on our own. We were on an island, like literally in Mindanao. And we were like, look, we want to meet other entrepreneurs, and so we met these guys, and they said, hey, come meet us on this island. I think it was Mindoro. So we flew up to meet them, and we started telling them our story. And these guys had a podcast that we had started listening to, and they were like, look, you guys are great. Now let's do a podcast interview with you. And we're like, we think we would suck. You guys sound great, but we suck at this. And I went back. I was nervous. So was my business partner was nervous about doing a podcast together. And we went back and listened to podcasts we liked, and we listened to their first couple of episodes, and that made us a lot less nervous because people suck when they start, right? Like no one's great podcaster out of the gate.
No,
so like it made me a lot more confident and feel a lot better about starting it, listening to their early foibles, so to speak.
Yeah, I had the advantage of having gone to broadcasting school and been on the radio, so got you beat on that.
That's helpful. Yeah, that or do that. If you do that, you can make it work too.
Yeah, well, I was still a little rusty when I started back. Justin, you're another expat like myself, living in Vietnam, stone's throw from where I am in Thailand. How do you like it there, and what do you like about it?
I love it. In 2010 is when we left to go move to the Philippines. I traveled a bit before that, but since then it's been just a whirlwind tour. I mean, for a number of years, my girlfriend, now wife, for 4 or 5 years, we did nothing but travel. So we lived out of suitcases, and we would stay in hotels or Airbnbs or service apartments. We'd stay 2 months here and 6 weeks there and 2 weeks here, like just doing travel. And so we got a chance to, we spent a lot of time in Thailand, obviously, all over Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines. We've been, Italy, Prague, spent quite a bit of time in Spain. So in the US, so we've traveled quite a bit, and we're always like looking for places that we like. And then we found ourselves always going back to Vietnam. So we travel around for 3 months and then come back to Vietnam for a month or two. And then we travel for a couple of months and come back. And we started spending more and more time here. And last year, actually, we said, you know what, let's just get a place. Like, we're spending probably 4 or 5 months a year in Vietnam. Why don't we just spend 7, 8, maybe 8 or 9 months a year? We love it in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City. Let's just get a place we can buy stuff and like have a home base. And we'll still travel, maybe a little less, but we'll have a home base. And we did that. It was 2019, summer 2019. We still did the travel thing, and then with everything that happened in early 2020 with COVID and everything since, we've been pretty locked down in Vietnam.
As Dorothy said, there's no place like home.
Yeah.
Boy, is that ever true. What's hot now in mainstream brokering? What are you selling a lot of?
We're selling quite a bit of Amazon FBA businesses, or fulfillment by Amazon. These are e-commerce businesses where people are uploading their products to Amazon. They're having Amazon handle the products and delivery and everything. So these are businesses that are quite popular, and we're selling a lot of maybe low 6 to low 7-figure businesses in the FBA space. So that's been
awesome.
That's a hot space right now.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, content sites are still good. So, content sites that are either AdSense monetized or Amazon Associate, which is an affiliate deal with Amazon, those still sell well. Lead generation sites, these are generally not always, but some of the ones that we sell are the ones that are for educational institutions. So let's say it's around nursing or something around that. Some kind of technical vocational school. Right. And there's for-profit schools that teach that. Well, they're always looking for students, and those students pay a lot of money. So if you can deliver them leads, they're willing to pay you $40, $60, $80 per lead. And so you can go through a company like Campus Explorer, and they're kind of the middleman, and they set the relationships with the schools, and then you just deliver them the leads. So you get the lead information that goes over to Campus Explorer. They may be paid $120, $150 per lead, and they're paying you $70, $80.
There you go. Yeah, back in the day, even before I got into radio, when it was back in the dark ages, I actually worked at the University of Phoenix, so in the Bay Area. So I do know about I do know about for-profit education. They're the biggest.
Yeah, those schools make a lot of money, and so they're willing to pay a lot of money for leads for the students.
Boy, are they! What do you like most about doing website brokering?
I mean, it's interesting. So let me say that sometimes the customers I like the most aren't necessarily the customers that make us a lot of money. And let me explain why I say that. So, we have some customers that are selling a business to them that, they've put blood, sweat, and tears into, and they're selling it for let's say $400,000. Right. And that's literally life-changing money for them. Yes. We had a guy that was a Cambodian kid in his early 20s, sold a site through us for a little over $300,000. And it was a crazy amount of money for a 20-something Cambodian kid. He's
now the 5th richest man in Cambodia.
Well, I mean, they've stolen a lot of money in that country. There's some people rolling around.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, no, this guy, I mean, it was crazy. He's built an entourage around him, other people that want to build these types of businesses, but it was life-changing money for him. Sure. And so, being able to do things like that is more interesting. Being able to help people, we had a couple that sold a website for, I think it was mid to high 5 figures, and they wanted to do it because they needed the money to pay for adoption services so they could adopt a kid they really wanted to adopt. So, those are the kind of stories that I think are just really fascinating, the life-changing stuff. But to be honest, now a lot of our money, the way we make our money is through the private equity, the small private equity shops, the kind of the funds that are raising money to buy a portfolio of businesses, and they're buying high 6 to low 7-figure businesses. And, it's much more, I mean, they've got interesting stories, don't get me wrong, but it's less personal. Right. And so, yeah, I kind of like the personal stories of the things that we're able to help people achieve in terms of selling their business or buying a business for the first time. And this happens a lot, is that people hear about kind of the remote, location independent lifestyle. There's some mid-level manager or exec, sitting in some office, maybe a cubicle or maybe even a corner office somewhere in the US, and going, man, I want to go to Bali, I want to go to Phuket and work on my site a few hours a day and make an income, make a living. And, offering them the opportunity to do that is pretty cool.
It's very rewarding. I agree with you. And it's not always the one that makes you the most money that's going to be the most rewarding. Helping people, that's what's rewarding. What do you like least about what you do?
What I like least? I mean, a lot of the things that I didn't like, some of the day-to-day stuff, I don't do anymore. the uncertainty is still, it's nerve wracking. I've noticed, like for me, I actually I work well when things are on the line, when there's more uncertainty or there's more risk. I do better, but it's an awful feeling.
Oh yeah.
And so with everything going on with COVID has been tough. I mean, I think I've got a lot more done, but it's also it also makes me pretty nervous because I don't know how things are going to turn out. I'll tell you, for example, like March was a really difficult month for us. Like for our goal for Q1, this is January, February, March 2020, we were around 60-something% of our goal. So a full almost 40% off of what we wanted to do.
Wow.
And that's not normal for us. Normally we're somewhere between like 90 and 110%.
Sure.
So, it was bad. And then we had a pretty bad April. Like April is not a solid month. And so, that had us pretty nervous. We were like, okay, how's this going to affect us? And we had to sit down our team and tell them, look, kind of, this is the boat we're in. We're in this boat together. We're going to do our best to get us all through it. We're going to let you know if we're not able to, and you're going to have as much heads up as we can give you, but we're going to try to make this work. And here's our plan. And luckily we turned around. We had, I think, our best month ever in May. So that was pretty helpful.
Sounds like you needed to.
we needed to. It was really, really helpful. And then June's looking really solid too. So I think we're going to have a really solid Q2. That doesn't, in my mind, like we're still going to hunker down and kind of see how things shake out in Q3. But it's quite a relief to know that Q2 is shaping up much, much better.
Absolutely. How big is your team?
Just under 70 people. So
what?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have I think 67, 68 people on our team right now.
Really?
Yeah. We have around just under 20 people are in the Philippines. And then everyone else is pretty much distributed. So we have some in the US, we have some in South America, we have some in Europe, and we have a contingent in Asia. My business partner, Joe, is in Manila. He's home based there, and I'm in Vietnam. But we got guys in Prague, Mexico City, Medellin, everywhere.
Are you doing some other services besides the website brokering?
Just brokering, but we have a team at each. We operate a little differently where it's not just an agency where we bring in brokers and then they kind of like own the relationship and kind of see everything through on their own. So we've made more of a machine or a process out of it. So when someone comes on board with us, we have a whole vetting team. So we have a department that's the vetting department, and their whole goal is to look at incoming businesses for sale and then go through our whole checklist and our whole thing, our whole process for seeing if those businesses are high enough quality or don't have the issues that they can't have to list with us. And so after that, it goes from the vetting team over to the sales team. And the sales team has a whole process and how they work with them. So end to end, from your start of the relationship to the end of the relationship, you're working through an entire different team as you kind of work your way through the process.
Well, now I'm a lot more impressed with my actions since I'm the team.
You're the guy.
Yeah, I'm the man. So I know you don't broker adult properties, which I'm quite happy about, since you send me business. Is there any other kind of website you don't handle?
Yeah, we won't do anything any of the legal businesses.
Sure.
Obviously.
Me either.
Yeah, of course. We for a while we didn't do like marijuana businesses. But we do now. So we've changed that. Yeah, it's funny because there's no we don't have I don't care. I don't care about adult. I don't care about marijuana. Whatever, it's fine.
Right.
But our thought was we're gonna be super cautious in the business for a number of reasons. I mean, one, we have customers that are looking at businesses and they, oh, I don't want to see this or, that kind of thing. So that makes sense. But then, for other reasons, there's other businesses we won't list if we think if we just think they won't sell. So obviously, if a business is scammy or sketchy, there are a whole number of things that we find out or we can't verify. That's more often it's not that they're scammy or a scam necessarily, but we can't verify that they're not. And so we don't let those businesses list. But then others, there's nothing wrong with the business per se, but it's in a niche that we think is very short-lived. So there was a time where, what are those little hoverboard things?
Oh yeah.
that we were selling some of the hoverboard sites, and we realized like no one's really buying them. Like there's not really, they're not that hot, and so we end up shutting them down and not allowing them to sell. There's a type of FBA, there's a type of drop shipping where people will just order the product on AliExpress and then ship to their customer just straight off AliExpress, and the shipping time is the lag is really long, and they don't use like unique images. It's not like an illegal thing to do, or it's not even like unethical or anything. It's just those businesses don't sell well, so we typically don't list them. Got
it. You get a good look at a lot of e-commerce sites. You mentioned the Amazon stuff. Are you seeing any other trends that are developing?
Trends in e-commerce in particular?
Well, I mean, it's just in sites that you would broker.
Yeah, so I'd say like in terms of what buyers are looking for, a lot of sellers come to us and they say, look, what kind of multiple will I get for the sale of my business? And the answer is always the boring, it depends, right? And they're like, am I going to get 20 times my net monthly profit, or am I going to get 45 times my net monthly profit? And it depends kind of sucks, because if you're making $10,000 a month, that could be the difference between 200,000 and 450,000. And so sellers are always like, well, how do I get to the 450 and not the 200? And the kind of like, there's specifics, but the general way to think about this is it comes down to buyer's perception of risk, right? Yes. So, if the business has been around longer, that's a positive sign. So if it's been around longer, it's got more history, that's generally a positive sign.
Yes.
If the business has diversified traffic, so you don't have one traffic channel or one way of getting customers in, you've got 3 or 4 or 5 that are working. You've got
like if they have one affiliate.
Yes, one affiliate.
Skeptical, right?
That's skeptical. The more affiliates you have, the more stable. No one affiliate does, let's say, more than 10% of your sales or whatever. Like that's an even stronger sign that your business is more stable. And it doesn't mean that your business isn't sellable. If you have one affiliate that's kind of crushing the others, doesn't mean it's not sellable. It just means you're likely to take a slight ding on your multiple because of that. Similar to like if you have only one product. So if you're an FBA business and you have one single product that's selling really well, that's kind of like making your entire business, your business still might be sellable. But as a buyer, I'm going to want to pay a discount for that because there's lots of risk with just one product. So other people could come in, they could find your supplier, that product could run out of fashion. Like, if you have 10, 12 products that are selling well, okay, well, that's a little more diversified. I'm willing to pay a bit more. So those are the kind of like the things that affect the multiple is the buyer's perception of risk in buying the business. How long will this still make me money?
Something is only worth what somebody will pay for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like I mentioned at the top of the interview, you're another expat. What do you miss about the USA?
What do I miss about the USA?
I asked you.
Definitely some food things, right? So it's like, man, In-N-Out. In-N-Out's delicious. That'd be nice to have an In-N-Out burger right now. But things like that for sure. But to get a little more, I don't know, a little more specific, a little more honest, there are things that are challenging in Asia just in terms of communication.
Sure.
So, for example, I was telling you, my wife and I got a puppy, right? So we have this Pomeranian dog that we were playing with. Great fun. But there's some miscommunication that's super easy to have. So we can go to the groomer. She could take it to the groomer and try to explain in English that's tough and the groomer's English is tough, what kind of cut she wants to give the dog. And then they could end up shaving the dog off, right? Just completely shaving off all
the dog ends up getting a mohawk.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the kind of thing that you just kind of have to roll your eyes, throw up your hands, and just kind of go, this is life. This is what we accept. This is
what we call it. You know what we call it here in Thailand? TIT.
Yeah, this is Thailand. Yeah,
you know that one.
Yeah, this is Africa. This is Asia. You have to get used to that. And it's funny, as an expat, my business partner and I moved to the Philippines. And we'd traveled through Asia, but it's different coming to visit for 2 weeks versus like living there. And my business partner would get both of us would get frustrated with it, but he continued like to get frustrated when things weren't exactly right, or he would order like, and this is silly, but he'd order coffee with like, he wanted warm milk. And they would never be able to get like warm milk. And he was like, he just get frustrated and like, God, I can never do anything right. Never. And eventually you learn to just kind of like live with that.
A man after my own heart.
Yeah. You have to, if you don't learn to live with that and learn how to deal with those kind of annoyances, you'll just make yourself crazy.
Indeed. Yes. And I have at times. So obviously things in America have gotten rather nuts. How often do you praise yourself for the decision you made to come out here? And I do every single day.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm so happy that I had the opportunity and took it. Right. I mean, there's a lot of people that could have made it happen, but didn't. I mean, there are other times in my life where I didn't. Right. And that one, I'm so glad that I did. And it's funny. When I originally left, it wasn't like a total mindset. It was just one thing. It was like, basically, I'm just moving my home and where I live from the U.S. to the Philippines, but everything stayed the same. Like we had a physical office that we went into, we kind of kept everything the same. We lived in one place and we would take a vacation from there, but come back to our home. And then it was another mindset later that like made me realize like, we don't have to have a physical office. We don't have to go into the office every day. You can work from home. You can travel and work at the same time. You can have your whole team do this through technology. And so like all these things added up, and I wouldn't have even realized any of that, I think, if I would have stayed in the U.S. I would have missed out on this whole like lifestyle. And it's, I say I do it, and I know you've done it, but like there are other people doing it. There are thousands of people that are kind of just expat entrepreneurs that are running legitimate businesses and doing it remotely. And I'm not talking about those like digital backpackers. I'm not talking about the kind of like people hanging out in the hostels or whatever. Like that's a thing, and people do that. That's great, but no, I mean, there's real entrepreneurs that are doing this kind of like travel and living abroad thing. That's fascinating.
Well, if Trump gets reelected, God forbid, there will be a lot more.
On that point, actually, I've had a lot of people that I've known, seems like a lifetime ago. I was in the Navy a long time ago, and I had some of those people reach out. I've had people from high school reach out recently, like in the last year or two, and say, hey, Justin, I see that you're kind of like living abroad. You've been doing it a long time. Can I ask you some questions, or like, are you so happy you got out? And there seems to be more interest in that from the U.S. I never, in all the years, I've been over here, that wasn't a super common thing. I'd have some people go, oh, that's cool. What you're doing seems kind of interesting or neat. But in the last year or two, it's a lot more like legitimate interest in possibly getting out that I'd never seen before.
Oh, yeah. Now, if you could give some advice to someone selling a mainstream site, besides to go to your site and list it, what would that advice be?
Yeah, sell with us. No, I mean, non-self-serving stuff. I mean, prepare to sell a year before. So, I mean, if sometimes you don't have the opportunity. So sometimes like, you're going through divorce and you need to sell the business to pay for or whatever, and you just don't have the time. Then you don't have the time, But if you think that you may have some interest in selling the business at some point in the future, then, have a talk with a broker, right? Have a conversation, start looking at getting your financials ready. And a broker will kind of guide you on like what the things you need to do to prepare for that. But getting your financials in order is helpful, particularly once you get like somewhere between 6 to 12 months out from selling. You're going to want to start doing things like making sure your books are in order, making sure the business is able to be turned over, making sure you get rid of any spend that you have associated with the business that isn't actually helping.
Right.
So a lot of times I'm kind of on the marketing side of our business, and on the marketing side, sometimes we're doing a lot of exploratory things. Like I'm throwing dollars at something, and I don't know if it's going to work, but it's a test, right?
Right.
Like you get rid of that test, 12 months out, definitely 6 months out from the sale of your business. And the reason is, we're going to count. You're going to have a lot of those expenses count against you on the profit and loss, and so it makes sense for you to start to cut back on any of the things that aren't actually making you a profit, that aren't actually making you money.
Absolutely. And don't change anything After we get done with this, I'll tell you a little story that will blow you away.
Well, man, I'll tell you this, Bruce. Like, we have people that list with us. They actually submit their business to be listed, and then we get them listed on our site, and we're going through the process of finding them a buyer and screening buyers. And buyers, particularly for the larger businesses, they want a detailed review. They're going to dig into it. And you have sellers that feel like they already sold the business, and so they're kind of like letting it get neglected, or they're not ordering more.
Exactly. You read my mind. Although you didn't have to, did you?
We beat these guys up about it. And when we're telling the sellers, no, you can't do that. And I understand the thought process. You're kind of like, I'm done with this anyway. Let me move on. But no, until you get money in your hand, wired to your account, you need to continue working on the business until you get the money. Don't drop the ball, because you got to see this all the way through, man. Yeah,
exactly.
Anyway. Yeah, we were on the same page there for sure.
Well, we most certainly are. Well, hey, Justin, I'd really like to thank you for being our guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk, and I hope we'll get a chance to do this again soon.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it, man.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
My broker tip today is part 5 of how to buy an adult website. Last week, we talked about how to determine the value of a website, how to negotiate the sale, and how to get to the point of drawing up an agreement. So now you're talking to your attorney and you're having them draft an agreement. What should be in it? Well, your attorney will guide you through the legal side, but here are some considerations to keep in mind from a buying standpoint. What is the date you'd like to close? Now make sure you know that you'll have the money to either pay the deposit or the entire amount of the purchase by that date. I've had buyers who aren't ready, and that just causes issues. In fact, I'm going through some of that right now with a couple of my deals. Make sure that all of the assets you're purchasing are in that agreement, such as every domain included in the sale, processing and payment accounts, relationships with vendors, all records including 2257 data, software to run the sites, and any other assets, such as source code for the sites. Of course, it should spell out any payment schedule if there is one. Who's responsible for closing costs, such as paying for escrow? And there are always terms that are unique to yours and the seller's situation. This assumes you're the party responsible for drawing up the agreement. If the seller is drawing it up, then it's important that you express all of this to your legal representatives so they can check the seller's agreement and see if any changes are necessary. We'll talk about this subject more next week. And next week, we'll be talking to notable porn actor Lance Hart. And that's it for this week's Adult Site Broker Talk. I'd once again like to thank my guest, Justin Cooke. Talk to you again next week on Adult Site Broker Talk. I'm Bruce Friedman.